So, I'm Ajinkya Kamat. I'm a Ph.D. candidate in physics. I specialize in particle physics. And over the years, I just got interested in science policy and science communication. So I thought of sharing what I have learned so far and what I think about the necessity and different means of science communications, where all we need science communication. So I will try to provide sort of broader perspective than the usual notion of science communication. So if we had been discussing about this a few months back, then I think it would have been difficult for me to convey to you what importance of science communication is. But in past few months, I think we have all seen the Ebola crisis. So let's watch a video on what a few Nigerian people think about Ebola.
But you know, this virus is not like HIV that can for like 10 days. Within weeks, and someone is gone. You know that?
Is it within weeks?
Yeah.
No, just make period is 90 days. I'll follow it on here.
That's like
1 week is 90 days.
90 days.
So I can still
okay.
I don't shake indiscriminately again. I don't hug indiscriminately again.
Okay.
So I just break it normal.
And they say we should be eating Coca-Cola. I don't know how to
So you've been eating a lot of Coca-Cola these days?
Not too much, but once in a while I can just put one in my mouth.
Okay.
You know, just.
I don't know how I'll prevent it.
So you've not even been taking any preventive measures?
At all.
Oh, are you telling me you're highly scared?
Everything is all about God.
So we need to go to God and pray.
Exactly. If you have your faith, you have a conviction, you stand. You have something to stand for. You have a conviction. You know this thing is not for me. It's not going to come to me. It's never going to come to you. Don't get me wrong. I never said even those it happened to, like you prayed for it or something. But the truth is, just have belief. This won't come to you. It won't come to your vicinity. It won't happen to you. Have that belief and trust God yourself. Then it will come to you. But then, sure. Because Because even give what belongs to Caesar to Caesar.
Yeah, that is talking.
Not that I don't believe that it does exist, it does, but somebody can cook it up. I know all this wine, all these scientists, they can cook anything up. Let me tell you, you know what? No, and I'm not disputing that it's not, but like I do tell somebody, we you know in computer we have viruses. These are programs written by all these programmers.
Yeah.
And they will put the programs on the net. Before you know it, they will now say virus, the virus. And they will be the people that will still write the program that they will not sell. So it's not possible, it's not out of place when somebody is saying somebody is bringing this up for somebody to market.
I'm very surprised to hear from Nigerians that they don't really believe in this virus, that they don't really believe it's existing. But either it's existing or not, let's try and take the preventive measures. It's very important. And also, I think every virus is not We're not even done with Boko Haram yet, and now Ebola. I just bring up with them. And that's all for today. I'm Odwa, your OT. That was the stuff.
So yeah, because the volume was a little low, it was video about opinions of two Nigerians on the Ebola virus. So few of them said that oh, I'm not scared. We should just have self-confidence that it won't I won't get infected. Few of them said, oh, we should have faith in God, and then our community won't get infected. One guy said that, oh, I don't believe these scientists. They just cook up something and there's marketing for ads to make money. Someone is making money on this. So we have seen this around as well. We have read a lot. So people getting afraid, media making sweeping statements, causing panic. Suddenly on social media, someone saying that, oh, Ebola is airborne, which by the way, of course it's not. And even healthcare providers, doctors and nurses, they not knowing the correct protocols to protect themselves while providing services. So all this shows at different levels lack of the communication about the science of Ebola. So when it comes to diseases like this, we do feel necessity to know about the science of the disease when the disease starts spreading, or sometimes when a disease is rooted out and suddenly one person gets infected. So at that time we feel, oh, we should know about the science of that. Or let's say about climate science. So if we feel that this summer was much hotter than last year's summer, or this winter was much colder than the last year, or this year we saw a lot more tornadoes than last year, then we feel, oh, let's find out what this climate change is. Are we causing it? Can we do anything to prevent it? How much time we have? Or let's say when it comes to gadgets. Now, if we have a smart watch and we read somewhere that the smart watch is not going to get any much smaller than what it is right now, then we try to find out, okay, what is it in semiconductor science or engineering that will prevent smartwatch from becoming smaller? I would like to have even smaller. Instead of smartwatch, I would like to have smart hearing. But there are many more fields of science, basic science and fundamental science, which don't have an immediate outcome, which is either technology or product, or they don't have immediate health benefit. And for those fields, it's difficult to convey their importance. For example, my own field. So I am a particle physicist. In particle physics, what we basically study is the most fundamental building blocks that the universe is made of. So for these fields, it's difficult to convey their importance. People do find it interesting, but up to a level of a topic of amusing science. Oh wow, that's, you know, Higgs boson, it's really interesting, it's really great science, it's amusing. But beyond that, as its importance, because such fundamental research lays down the foundations for far future technological advancements, people don't realize that. For example, many people don't know that the World Wide Web, which is, of course, is an integral part of our life, it was outcome of research endeavor in particle physics. So in late 80s, people were still doing research at CERN, which is in Switzerland, where the Higgs boson was discovered. It's the European Organization for Nuclear Research. And even at that time, European scientists and American scientists, they would collaborate. And so to collaborate, to get the data from CERN, US scientists would have to fly all the way to Europe, get the data on magnetic tapes and fly back, and it was just so inconvenient, and it was also expensive, as you can imagine. So that is why people thought that we should figure out something, and they created the system of World Wide Web. They came up with the Hypertext Transfer Protocol, which is HTTP, which we still use. So people don't know that even fundamental research and many other research fields, not only particle physics, it has a lot of direct and indirect outcomes which are useful in near future as well as far future. So this is because there is a lack of communication at different levels. So why should we tell people about all this? Why should we tell people about all this science, about all these uses? First and foremost reason I can think of is that we are scientists, so we feel excited about what we do. We feel motivated, that's why we are pursuing that research. So why not to share that excitement with others? So simply for that reason. But going beyond that, of course, those of you who have heard, maybe even experienced the shortage of funding in US. I'm sure you, if not experienced, you must have heard about it or read about it. Now this shortage of funding is felt in many branches of science, and this funding is of course limited. If you look at the budget of US, the funding is limited. So what it comes down to is distribution of funds. So which project to fund and which project not to fund. And how is that decided? So that is decided by the funding agencies or committees of Congress, but they don't have, they are not expert in science. So because they don't know, sometimes wrong research might get higher priority. So there is another lack of communication, a gap of awareness about priorities. Another feeling that a lot of scientists have is lack of appreciation. They think that what they do is not really appreciated by people, common people, public, or maybe policymakers, a lot of people. So as I mentioned earlier, they do get appreciation as an amusing topic of popular science, but not beyond that, not as this is something that should be funded. So again, they don't appreciate it because they don't know about it. Also, we scientists, we want to continue this research enterprise. So we want new students to join in and continue the research. So if we want new people to join in our workforce, then we need to get the students, the college students, high school students interested in becoming a scientist or following a research profession. So there are several reasons. Basically, we see that there are so many gaps of communication. There are so many gaps where people need to know about science and scientific research and its importance, but they don't have that information for one reason or another. Although recently, if you see, there are also some articles which talk against science communication. So there are many articles which claim that it is counterproductive to draw public attention to scientific research. Why it's counterproductive? It's because if you draw public attention, then for popularity, sometimes results are fabricated, or sometimes interpretation of data is rushed and wrong conclusions are drawn. So this is against the ideal process or the culture of how science should be done. Although I think that we should be open about the science, we should communicate about science, but not for the sake of popularity. It should be for the purpose of educating people, educating non-specialists about the importance of science, and not only about science, but we should be open about the process of science, in the sense that we shouldn't say that oh, scientists know everything what they do. It's science, so we are not always right. We try something and 1,000 times we get it wrong, and the next time we get it right. So we should be open about it, that sometimes we will make mistakes. Once we realize that, we will correct it and then we'll move forward. That is just the way it is. And so that is about the process of science that we should be open about. If we try to pretend that we actually know what we are doing, we are always right, and if we try to hide that, of course it's not going to work all the time. So sometimes scientists will go wrong, and at that time we look bad. Okay, you are pretending, you are saying that you know everything you know, everything you are doing, but how did this happen? So instead of that, we should be open about the process. So not only educate people about the science, but also the process of science, that it is hard, so we can go wrong, and finally we'll come back to the right conclusion. So now, how should we communicate about all this? There are so many gaps. So what is the strategy? Who are the audiences to whom we can communicate to? So I will classify the audiences in mainly 3 categories. Of course, there is a lot of overlap, but I am classifying mainly because the strategy or the approach of communication for these 3 categories, it's different. The one is what I call grassroots. So grassroots means public, students, and beneficiaries of the research. By that, what I mean is, if people are doing cancer research, then cancer patients are the beneficiaries of the research, and often they are not aware of either the research that is going on or the process of that. A few days back, I actually met a lady from NIH, National Institute of Health, and she is a communication specialist. What she specializes in is communicating about cancer research to cancer patients. So what she told me is that sometimes patients will read some article about some new drug that is being worked on in some lab, and they will say, oh, I want that drug, I want that, that might cure me. But that's not how it works, because from the lab all the way going to a medicine level, there are a lot of stages. So they need to be educated about what is that process. So what this lady specializes in is telling them what they can do to speed up the process of getting that chemical to a medicine level. For example, they can talk to their congressman that when it will come to funding this particular project, this kind of research, please encourage that. Please follow up and push this project forward. So public and beneficiaries of the research is what I will say are grassroots, including students. The other one is this is a term that I actually heard in DC, is called grass tops. So grassroots and grass tops. And grass tops are basically the policymakers and the leaders. This is including leaders in a particular area of research. For example, there are many representative scientists which are invited to testify in front of Congress sometimes, or even which are invited sometimes at the executive branch, the White House offices, to get their advice. So, now that there are very few people, you can interrupt me anytime, and we can just go directly to discussion. So, don't feel.
So you said grassroots and grass tops.
So yeah, so far we have read with grassroots. The other one is grass tops, because the style of the approach of communication at these two levels is different. At grass tops, you are dependent on them because that's where your funding comes from. Well, finally, actually your funding comes from grassroots because they are the taxpayers and you're funded by the taxpayers' money. But the distribution of that is decided by the grass tops. Grassroots, you need it for a different purpose, because they are beneficiaries. Two, they are the taxpayers, so we have that kind of obligation. The third purpose is that sometimes here people are asked to vote on a particular bill, which might be related to science and technology funding. So that is where they should be aware of the importance. So we have dealt with these two. The third one that I came up with that term, and it actually suits. So if we have grassroots and grass tops, the third one is grass STEM, and that is basically the STEM: science, technology, engineering, mathematics, which means communicating to other researchers outside our research area. Now, why is that important? Because that can lead to many useful interdisciplinary collaborations, and on top of it, it can benefit different fields of research. For example, in particle physics at the Large Hadron Collider in Switzerland, one collaboration has 4,000 to 5,000 people, and they analyze data and they come up with results. So of course they have some best practices for sharing of the data and sharing of the results, the review process. And we see that many fields like biochemistry or even medicinal science, they struggle to figure out what are the best practices to share the data. And that's why often the data is not reflected from the publication itself. So there are centers, there are think tanks which specialize only in reproducing the result of some biochemical research. For example, we have a center of open science around here. So if we communicate to researchers outside our field, then that can, I think, overall enrich the entire research enterprise. So we saw these three classes: grassroots, grass tops, and grass stems. And at all these places, we have gaps of communication. But I don't think it is enough if I just talk about science communication, and necessity of science communication. I think all of us are students. Are you also a student?
Yeah, I'm a student.
Okay, fine. So then everyone is sitting in the same boat as I am. So in that case, it's not enough for me if people just communicate about science, because I have to find a job. So what does this tell me in terms of jobs? Now, we saw that this entire issue of science communication, it's complex. There are so many audiences, there are so many stakeholders. We'll go into details of that when we'll discuss more. And So the whole thing is complex. The good thing is that this complexity leads to a lot of opportunities for people who have expertise in STEM in terms of the career paths. So let's see, the first obvious thing that we can think of is related to the GRAS STEM category. That is in STEM, in academia. So follow the faculty or researcher job in national lab, university, so many places, even industry. But while doing that, maintain a component of science communication on site, because that is these days very important. Even NSF, the National Science Foundation, they have the requirement of what is called broader impacts in their grant proposal, that in every grant proposal people should specify some broader impacts activities that they do as part of that research project. The other day I was talking to a science and technology policy fellow at NSF, and she was telling me that even they feel bad when sometimes a good research project doesn't get funded only because in the proposal the person was not able to convey the importance of that particular research because he was too technical. He couldn't come out of the equations and the instrumentation, the experimentation, and give a broader perspective. And whereas some other project which is not of that high priority, it gets funded just because that person explained it better in the grant proposal. So there also people feel this necessity that while in academia, in research, people should think that how I should communicate, how I can explain the broader impact of my research. In terms of job opportunities at GRAS Talks, there are a lot of science policy fellowships which people can get started in. That is after the graduate studies. After undergraduate, there are a lot of internships at, say, NIH or even executive branch, that is the White House offices, as well as the legislative, the congressional staffers. So also for graduate students, we have professional societies, American Physical Society, American Chemical Society, American Meteorological Society. So these societies basically represent that particular research community, and they have a division of government relations, and what those people specialize in is basically science communication. So bringing the issue of importance in that particular research field and giving it a platform at a congressional briefing, or organizing a visit of those scientists to the Congress or to an office at the executive branch. So the executive branch is the White House and as far as grassroots are concerned, as I mentioned, the NIH lady, so NIH, so National Institute of Health and all these different academies, National Academies of Sciences, of Engineering, they have people who specialize in science communication. So they have communication specialists. So even those are good career paths for people who want to follow that up. They also have internships. Then in general, what we know, becoming a science writer, writing a blog, becoming a blogger or a journalist. So that is well known. So those are also a good career paths. In terms of what students can do right now is start developing your communication skills of communicating outside of your research area. It may be, you can start with your friends, family, whoever, but start developing those communication skills. And fortunately at U.Va, there is Office of Professional Development, which is under Vice President for Research, and that office is organizing a science communication project, which is going to be a one-year-long series of workshops to train graduate students on science communication skills. So you can attend those workshops and training. In April, there's also going to be a career panel on science communication, where we'll get some experienced people in different aspects and different branches of science communication, and people can get advice from them and network. So that is all about why we should communicate, who are the audiences, and what are the opportunities for graduate students. I can go on and on into details of each and every sentence of what I said, but let's instead of that, let's actually discuss about, so whatever you want to know details about, let's check out that.
So how do you balance having this passion for communicating science and kind of expanding it to a non-science audience, but also maintaining your own research and your own studies and everything?
Okay, that's a good question. Okay, good that my advice is not good. But as it is said in general, outside of academia, what we need to build. So because I have this passion for science communication and science policy, I'm even considering that as an option for my career. What we need over there is a T-shaped expertise. So by T-shaped, it means that we need a depth in one topic, and then we need a breadth of overall understanding. So how I do that? Of course, research, I don't have to do anything. I just do research. But otherwise, I just follow news and I read about it. I just talk to people. So I go to a lot of networking events. Even in DC, I just drive from here to DC in the morning and I drive back in the evening just to attend a 2-hour networking, and it helps. Like even if sometimes you get 5 minutes over there, it happened actually. A couple of weeks back, there was a panel in DC on overlapping technology in space and farming.
In farming?
Farming and space, exactly.
Like NASA space? Like in space?
Yes, the space.
Oh
Yes,
my God.
exactly. And I thought, so okay, I'll come to what the panel talked about, and that was supposed to start at 9 a.m. So I left here at 6 a.m. Although I reached the venue because of it was early, the peak hour in the morning. I reached the venue at 11. So it took me 5 hours just to get there.
Wait, because of traffic or?
Because of traffic.
Oh my
Because of
gosh,
traffic.
that's frustrating.
And what I got is just last half an hour of Q&A, and after that just mingling with people. In that time of after Q&A, in like 10 minutes, I met 5 new people, and 2 of them gave me a second contact to contact. So yeah, the basic thing is you just network. You find, if you are interested more, just find informational interviews. I just go around asking people questions. Did I answer the
Yeah,
question?
and
Okay.
well, what did they say about farming in space? Just curious.
That is interesting. What is your guess? So let's guess something. I also guessed. My guess was that, but let me not tell you, but yeah. Any guesses?
Don't they try to figure out how to grow in space so they can try to figure out what the specific constraints are, like in case of a drought or weather conditions? Ballpark.
Yep. So I mean, it looks like science fiction, but yeah, they were actually seriously discussing about farming in space, or farming and vertical farming, or building a space station for say long-term stay in space, like 6 months.
Oh, that's kind of
Because right now they cannot stay very long because it degrades the bone density, and it also has many psychological impact. So it overall degrades the health. So 6 months they stay. If they stay for 6 months, astronauts, they have to spend another 6 months in hospital just to come back to the normal status.
Wow.
So they're thinking of how can we farm in space. So that's why build better stations in space. And what do we need to do? So all these astronaut suits, they are like sterilized, right? So there are no bacteria or anything. But if we need to farm in space, essential thing we need to take to space is bacteria. So how to take bacteria, how to maintain moisture, and how different things can collaborate, different agencies. That's actually an important thing that I should mention here in terms of science communication. I mentioned researchers in different fields, they should communicate with each other. So in this panel, someone asked, so this is space and farming, but there is no one from Department of Agriculture on the panel. Why is that? So does NASA talk to the Department of Agriculture? Because this is farming. And they said, no, we cannot really, because according to the legal and the act, the procedure, when it comes to funding, if we collaborate, then we have to share some funding. So then we have to share funding information. But according to the law, NASA cannot talk to, during the funding process, NASA cannot talk to Department of Agriculture what NASA is getting, and vice versa, what Department of Agriculture is getting. So then they cannot really collaborate and join and create some one program. Although scientists who are getting funded by NASA and scientists who are getting funded by Department of Agriculture, there is nothing that stops them from communicating with each other. So in terms of taking interdisciplinary research forward, it is easier for researchers to communicate with each other than to ask that two departments of two divisions of government should talk to each other.
Actually, do you guys want to go around and say like what your majors are and stuff, just because like I don't know what turn out.
So I'm a physics graduate student. So I'm 1 year junior to Ajinkya.
Yes, we're in the same office.
Yeah, we're in the same office. I'm a nuclear theorist. Yeah. So I'm doing phenomenology in nuclear physics.
Wow, it's incredible. Well, I'm trying to be a physics major, so I'm an undergrad in my second year, and I'm really enjoying it. But it's a challenge. So going to events like this reminds you of kind of the meaning of it, as we're saying, for you, talking to people reminds you of why you were interested in it. And right now I kind of realize, I don't know if I even like it, but I know that it's the most meaningful thing for me. So that keeps me, dedicated to physics.
Great.
I'm actually an aerospace engineering student, second year, so the NASA stuff I find very interesting.
That's not a correct guess. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, and I'm an intern. I'm actually architecture and architectural history, but like, I think this is all really cool. And we actually, we have problems with money, we have problems with getting outside. The A schools over here and the colleges over here. So we have problems communicating when we need help learning about engineering or science. Like we need to get out of school, and then it's like how do you do it?
What's your name? I know.
Staten. Like
Staten?
Staten Island.
Okay.
I'm Katya.
I'm Ava. Ava? Yeah.
You're Angie.
I'm Angie.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, any other question I can?
For any other networking events that you've done, have you collaborated with other researchers or things?
On networking events?
Or like if you've met somebody at a networking event, have you come up with any projects or kept in touch?
I haven't, because my particular area of research is such that there's not really something that can be done like an interdisciplinary research. It's very specific way of studying particles, like the Higgs boson and neutrinos. So I don't have a scope for interdisciplinary research, but I have met people who told me that I met someone just at networking event, or I just read an article, or I just met that guy, and that led to a collaboration. We had that idea that I have this expertise and you have that expertise. So it can, and even people at NSF, they put in this extra effort to start that kind of thing, because NSF sends some people to conferences on computer science and conferences on immunology. So both those communities can help each other, but they don't really understand each other. So these people who are in science, they are also STEM Ph.Ds and they are science policy fellows. So they go to both these conferences, and they will tell computer scientists that that your expertise can be used in immunology, and immunologists, so computer scientists can benefit you. So talk to them. I will help you. So yeah, it does that.
Do you think that all the people over the Higgs boson will has provided more funding because it was such a I got so much media attention?
Actually not, because the funding was provided way before it was discovered.
But you don't see it helping boost later. I don't know, I just saw so much media attention about it. Everyone I know thought it was really cool, even though we're outside science.
Right. I think why people thought it was cool is because of the hype created by the term God particle. Although it's a complete misnomer, because yeah, it is nothing related to God or God's particle. It actually started as, you might have heard, with the term goddamn particle, because it was so hard to discover. So someone put it as the title of the book, but the publisher said that, oh, we cannot have like damn on the title of the book, so let's remove the damn, let's have God particle. So I think that that contributed to a lot of public attention, calling it a God particle. But it was funded. I mean, that the project, Large Hadron Collider, it started about 20 years back, more than 20 years back, or 25 years back. So, and it has been funded by 26 countries. They have invested so far more than $13 billion in that. So for us, it looks like a big amount, but on the scale of budget, it's not.
I've seen the pictures of the CERN collider. It's the biggest building object I've ever seen.
Yes, it's the biggest machine, biggest structure that man has created. It is 27 kilometers in circumference, so it's huge.
Have you been there?
I haven't, unfortunately, I haven't.
Do you plan to go?
I don't have a plan, but I'd love to.
What about the Charlottesville community? Are there networking events here? You said you have to travel to DC.
There are a lot of networking events. So we have the Engage U.Va, so they send out a lot of events, and a lot of them are networking events. Many events which are not really networking events, like say I went to this panel, it's not a networking event. I just went there to network. So you can just go to a seminar of, oh, this guy is from an interesting field, I would like to meet that guy. And you just have to be actively searching for someone who might be useful, useful contact. Maybe they are useful, but they might tell you someone else who is useful. So one is follow the Engage U.Va. Then we have U.Va Innovation. Have everyone heard of U.Va Innovation?
No.
Okay, so U.Va Innovation is an office. It used to be U.Va Licensing and Ventures Group. What that group does is, suppose some research group comes up with a technology or a research or even a medicine which is commercializable. So or it is patentable. So they need to go through a process because they are scientists. They don't know how to get patents or something. So they need people who are experts in writing patent applications. So it was initially that division, just focusing on patenting, like coming up with patent. They have patent lawyers, so going to patent application and getting the patents. But a few years back, it became U.Va Innovation. So now they not only work on patenting, but they also help people to take it from patenting level to innovation, that is to commercialization. So they also connect them to potential investors and people who have experience. They have even in-house entrepreneurs. So people who have experience, like serial entrepreneurs. So they have experience of starting business. So that is their main activity, connecting research community and research results and guiding them, helping them to a process, to a goal of commercialization. So they organize a lot of networking events. So that is, if you are interested on that side, you can just follow their events and go there. Then there is of course OpenGrounds. There's a lot of events. So just follow these events. And can I think of anything else? In the Office of Professional Development, the Graduate Career Services, and I'm sure the University Career Services, UCS as well, they also organize a lot of seminars and events. So even if you just go to a seminar and talk to that speaker, you have met at least one person. But yeah, remember whenever you talk to someone, ask that person, so at the end, so who else you think would be a good person for me to contact? So that it will just keep going on.
Do you always have to have some sort of project or idea in mind to like work with them? Or you just find people in the field?
You just find people. So what I'm interested in, my interest is in science policy. So in general try to find out about different scientific research that is going on, and I also like to talk to people who have some science policy component in whatever they do. Like if someone is in environmental science, of course that has a strong science policy component as compared to particle physics. So then I would like to go and talk to them if that person is someone. So you don't have to have something, some specific project in mind. You can just go and talk about your interest. That what I do is, if I meet someone after the seminar, I just find out some question to ask that person. That question might need not be from the audience, but afterwards. Sometimes I must admit, sometimes that question is not something I want an answer to. I just want to start a conversation, and so you just have to have conversation, talk about your interest, and ask something. And if not that time, if you find it interesting, try to get an appointment later, phone call.
So, sorry, I had a question.
Just quickly for the reason.
Yeah.
But like, how actively are people who actually do the research involved in speaking to people, other people outside?
Unfortunately, they are not. I mean, you also even we see around us that unfortunately they are not, for multiple reasons. Sometimes they are reluctant. They are just so focused on what they do, they are not worried about talking to others. Sometimes they have this feeling that, oh, we are experts in the field, and what we do is so complex that is like there is no way I can communicate to someone who doesn't know multivariate calculus. You need to learn that first. But that's not how it works, because science has meaning only if it leads to some kind of advancement. So that is one reason. Sometimes they are just unable to communicate. Sometimes they try to, but they are not able to convey to people outside. They are so technical.
Even though the intention is there.
Even if there is intention, just because they don't have skill, they haven't developed that skill, they don't think about it. Because the approach of communication within the field and outside field is, they are exactly opposite of each other. A lot of times it is shown as two inverted pyramids. So when we write a research paper, we start with introduction, background. So we talk about this guy did that guy did this, and I did this some 5 years back, and this whole thing. And then we talk about so I did this in my last paper. And in final section I say, so now what I got, the final thing, my work is this. So we start with the introduction, the background, and then we talk about the actual bottom line, and then we say its benefit. When you are talking to outside of the field, you have to tell the bottom line first. Then you have to talk about why it's relevant first. Then you come down to, so in that relevant thing, what I did, okay, and then other things, the introduction. Then it has this kind of broader background depending on what people are. So because the approaches are different, many times people are not able to. So I think yeah, these are two reasons why people don't usually.
And is it just physics, or it's like all science?
It's everything. It's everything. Even in biology, a friend of mine who works in biology, it's I guess biochemistry, so basically medicinal research, and she was telling me that that there is even a communication gap between medicinal researchers and doctors, because when patients come to doctor, what they want to know is, oh, will I be cured or not? Okay. Although if you see papers from medicinal chemistry, those are like, so with 95% confidence level, we say that 97% of the people without much side effects will experience this, according to our research. So if doctors start telling them, oh, so 97% probability you will be cured, then yeah, it is good. So again, it's there pretty much everywhere, and all the fields. Take even climate change. I mean, it's so popular, such a popular field. We see discussion about it everywhere, constantly, and still people are not sure about whether it is happening or not. What is causing it? Can we stop it? Still people are not sure. So that's essentially because there is gap of communication for that. And I would like to say this in terms of the resources. Yes, the resources for communication, that to reach out to people. If you want to say, if you are doing some research and you want to reach out to some policymakers or anyone who is relevant to your field, there are a lot of resources. One is your professional society. Right? If you are in physics, American Physical Society; chemistry, American Chemical Society; American Meteorological Society. They have a division of government relations, and those people specialize in basically connecting researchers to the policymakers. The secondly, I don't know about all, but I think most of the universities have a government relations office. Even U.Va does. The U.Va has a state government relations office. We don't have federal government relations office, but the efforts of federal government relations, they are kind of spread out. It's kind of a distributed task, and people do it independently. So reach out to these offices and tell them that I want to talk about this topic, and I want to convey this information to so and so. So they can help you. They can, or even there are groups, there are think tanks, non-profits, as they are often called, who do research on science communication or science policy, especially on particular topic. So like even at U.Va we have Miller Center, which specializes not in science policy, but they specialize in politics. But I was giving an example of a think tank. Then there is a Center for Open Science. Then there is also a group called Compass, and they will be conducting a workshop in March on communicating science to media. So they have also this program that you can reach out to Compass, and then they can help you reach out to say Congress or the executive branch. And this reaching out is really important, because often these staffers, I don't know why they're called staffers. For some reason they're not called staff. People in Congress are called staffers. So often these staffers, most of them are in the age group of 20 to 25. So they just got the recent graduates, got their undergraduate degree, and maybe they plan to go for law, but before that they want some experience. So they're working there. And suddenly their congressman would ask them, so advise me on so and so science topics. Of course they're not experts in science, the staffers. So what they do is, either they have met someone at some networking event, some scientist related to that field. So they will just call, or if they don't know, they will Google. Or they will go to their LinkedIn and so. And whosoever is on the radar, whichever scientist is on the radar, they will contact that person. Now that person might not know that specific topic, although from say physics, I don't really know specific things about say atomic physics science, because I am in particle physics. So at that time, that person might tell something based on his limited knowledge, or also might tell something based on his personal opinions that might not reflect opinions of the research community. And then the staffer will advise the congressman based on that, which is not a comprehensive information. So this happens because they don't know, and they need to tell some advice really quick. So for that reason, it's I think important that the science community constantly reaches out to the executive branch and the legislative branch, and keep them aware of what is going on, what are the high priorities, what are the priorities next to that. So that is why we should constantly reach out.
Do you find Germany has a better science policy connection because of their trying to survey, chemistry and quantum chemistry?
I don't know specifically a lot about German science policy, but it definitely helps if there are people in say Congress who have a research background. Now I don't think we have anyone in common.
Exactly, that's what I find.
Yeah,
so
the
crazy.
last physicist just retired a couple of years ago. Yeah.
I know there's a science committee and they met on global warming, but there's not a single scientist there.
Yeah.
I mean, the representatives of the House or the Senate.
So even if there is a scientist, so even if there is a scientist, of course they will encourage science as a whole. But there is another aspect to that, and that is let's say not Congress, but even there are representative scientists. There are scientists which are called to testify in front of Congress, or say submit a report. There is a committee that is convened to submit a report on some issue. Recently, I read yesterday in American Physical Society news that there was a committee formed to advise DOE, Department of Energy, on a strategic plan for next 10 years regarding the fusion science research. So they came up with a report, they submitted it. Now the fusion science research community is saying, oh, this is not what we think. So we don't know how this report came up. This doesn't really represent what the community thinks. So even if there is a scientist, what they will tell might be based on their personal opinion. So those scientists, they need to make sure that what they are representing is not only their personal opinion, but they are going beyond that and they are truly representing the community. And at the same time, the community should make sure that they are also on the radar. So yeah, even if we have scientists, it helps. But yeah, the problem is slightly deeper than that.
But thank you so much.
Was that state? Or state?
State, it was state, yeah.
Oh, state. What about the National Academy of Science? Are they involved in trying to bridge the gap between